Welcome back to more videos on the left side of my bed where I talk about left politics and be absolutely based in the process of it. So, about the U.S. extermination camps, such as CCOT in El Salvador. To those that may be wondering, how do we know that this is an extermination camp? There's no gas chambers or anything along those lines. Uh, First thing I just want to mention is that, well, no, of course there's no gas chambers. Of course there's nothing because they're either one, not in plain sight, or two, we don't use that anymore, right? We're not 100 fucking years ago, right? There's better ways to kill people en masse than before, right? Like, if you remember what concentration and extermination camps actually were, they were labor camps. They were labor camps that was exploiting the labor of marginalized groups that then being exported out, and then in the process of their labor being used, they died, right? And because that was how they were mostly being used for. That was what their purpose was. Like, and then after they were being useful, they were killed. They were, gassed, then they were burned and all these other things, right? And you can tell that that's basically what's just going to be happening in El Salvador. That all of this stuff, instead of being gassed, they're just being starved. They're just going to fucking die of starvation and be left to rot and all these other things, right? And the thing that is the most absurd and horrifying about it is how sterile it all looks. It looks modern. It's a modern prison. It is clean. It has all these other things. And the reason why this place is so clean and why all of these, encampments look nice is, one, because it's the modern age. That's just how they're going to look. But two is that they have to put a veneer over it. Now, I'm not saying that they're actively being malicious and being like, yeah, we gotta, we gotta make it look nice so that when we're killing these people, that people won't guess anything. I'm sure that there is some people out there that are a part of these projects that are like, yes, we need that. But it's also the fact that they build it just like a normal prison. These are just how prisons are built. There is psychology behind it. There's these nuances. There is these architecture and all of these different like minds behind making these places to what they are, so that you can then like either one, not question it, or two, it can still serve its purpose without looking like a super villain layer, right? These these places have existed forever, right? This isn't news. People are, freaking out about the fact that the U.S. is sending people, to uh, outside of homeland soil and all these other things. But this has always happened. I mean, you can say that, like, oh, well, Auschwitz was in Poland, which, yes, it was, but Guantanamo Bay, right? Look at all of like black sites. The very concept of black sites is that they are places that are not on the books. They are not on soil. They are outside of the jurisdiction of the laws of the land, therefore giving them freedom to not abide by the laws that they themselves constitute, right? Because again, at the end of the day, laws are not just for you and me. Laws primarily are to serve the ruling class and to support hegemony in support of that ruling class. Again, it's not one of those things where it's actively being manufactured to be that way. It just happens because that is the culture. That is what happens because people believe in it, people buy into it. Therefore, people are going to try and make laws, and then over the decades, laws are going to develop and stack upon each other from different groups and ideologies. That because other people are buying into it, they then vote to keep those in power. So it's God, I really need to script these videos out. Oh, but I like going off the cuff because it shows that I'm being as truthful as I can to you guys. But yeah, like these places have existed forever, right? And they're not gulags, right? They're not what people will label as gulags and some sort of like red scare, mislabeling of the prison institution that the Soviets had, where people were actually given a maximum of like what was it? It was 8-hour work days and had mandatory meals, and the fact that most of the people that were in these places were actually being judged by tribunals that were made up of citizens and not professional judges. Um, so it was what the civilization and society wanted to do with these people. Um, and then also the fact that the labor that they did actually reduced their sentences, regardless if they were from, say, Nazi Germany and were prisoners of war or were just standard criminals and the like, that whose prison sentences lasted on average from 2.5 to I think what was it 7 years. No, that's not what these places are. They aren't that. They're the Auschwitzes, right? They are the places that people went and they never came back from. There was not a thing where, oh, Auschwitz, if you work real hard, we'll let you go. Right? We know we came in and Das Juden, right? Or Das Roma, like black commie, right? And then, shipping you off and then to never be seen again. Like, that's what these places are. They are people being like, oh, well, they were falsely sent there. They need to come back. They're not coming back. They're fucking dead. It's either they're dead now because they were, just injected, they were shot, or they're still alive out there, but because of the fact that it's all sorts of bureaucratic red tape behind the scenes, they're not coming home. They're staying in that fucking prison cell and they're going to rot there for the rest of their lives. And then the media, in the process of that, is going to try and justify it of why that cruelty is being used on US citizens or even just any citizen of any nation and justifying that. Because these aren't prisoners of war. These are civilians. These are innocents, right? And everything that is like, oh, well, they were gang members, or oh, they were. Are you fucking stupid? Are you stupid? Like these aren't. These are people that are threatening status quo, right? And this isn't in the case of being like, oh, we need to stop Nazis, we need to stop fascism. No, these are just people who are speaking out. The night of the fog and all that shit of like that Germany had of being able to you know disappear people because they were political dissidents. That's what's going on. This is why we need to organize. This is why we need to come together to protect our communities. Grassroots organizing. This is the reason right here, so that if people go missing, we know that it happens. If people in our communities, if something happens to them, we can speak out about it, right? And okay, maybe nothing will happen. Maybe justice won't be had for these people. But because of the fact that we know that it's happening, we're speaking out about it, it makes it harder to do to us. That way, that whenever, like, we have the opportunity for justice to be gotten for these crimes, that those that enacted that are able to face proper justice, right? I mean, when you look at it, look what happened with like the Nuremberg trials, right? Despite the fact that most of the countries there were neoliberals anyway and were only one step away from fascism themselves, uh, that proper, like, trials and understanding what is being done and why the things that are being done is bad onto the people that, like, are committing these crimes against humanity, right? They should be the ones that are being sent to these kinds of places, right? Only after being given fair trials, right? They should be the ones that are going to these places for all sorts of their horrendous, heinous actions against the proletariat, right? Not these people that are victims of the system, or the people that should be given different trials or go to different prisons, right? Instead of a death camp or a concentration camp. And maybe that confuses some of you, but I'm saying it as blatantly as possible. These people should not be going to these concentration camps. They should not be the ones going to these extermination camps and everything like that. In fact, these places should not exist in the first place. But if there is ever a place that people need to be sent to places like that, it's the fascist. All right. Bye bye.